Welcome, proud parents, teachers, and my peers of the class of 2015. My name is Cameron Jones, the Senior Class Vice President, and I am delighted to be with you this morning and to have the honor of introducing our keynote speaker. Although we have come to the close of our time at Blake, we look to turn the page on a new chapter in our lives that will bring forth many accomplishments, memories, and newfound knowledge. Today, we have with us an individual who has sat in the very same seats as we have and exemplifies the success we should all wish to achieve, Mr. Robert Klemko. Mr. Klemko is a Blake graduate and started his journalism career in high school by writing for the Blake Beat. He is a University of Maryland College of Journalism graduate and started at USA Today in 2009 as a reporter and digital editor. Later, he was hired full-time as a reporter after graduation. There, he covered a variety of worldwide events, including the Super Bowl and the U.S. women's soccer team's run to gold in the 2012 London Olympic Games. In June of 2013, he was hired as a reporter for Sports Illustrated's Monday Morning Quarterback. Along with his many contributions to the community, Mr. Klemko has started a scholarship at Blake honoring Kevin Keegan, which has been awarded twice. Recently, Mr. Klemko has been awarded the 2015 Rising Star presented by the Shirley Povich Center for Sports Journalism. I was gifted the opportunity of speaking with Mr. Klemko over the phone to discuss his career. I must say, he is a pretty cool guy. He makes the complicated tasks associated with journalism look easy and happens to be a great storyteller as well. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor and distinct pleasure to introduce you to Mr. Robert Klemko.
All right. Principal Barry, members of the platform party, parents, teachers, family, and every single member of the 2015 James Hubert Blake High School graduating class. Most of you don't know who the heck I am. I don't blame you. I don't even have a Wikipedia page. I'm a writer for Sports Illustrated, which was a lifelong goal, and it happened the month I turned 25. The last 3 years have been a dream for a kid who wrote for the Blake Beat. As Cameron said, I covered a gold medal soccer match, the London Olympics, 3 Super Bowls, and I stood among protesters as they clashed with Ferguson police, tweeting through the tear gas. I can't tell you what my next story will be, or even where I'll live next year. What I can tell you is that 10 years ago, I was sitting down on that floor, listening to some guy tell me about what was next for me at 17 years old. I don't remember his name or what he looked like, or really anything he said. I was just happy to graduate from Blake, and I was itching to get out of here and drive down to Ocean City. But I hear you guys already got that out of the way. My high school GPA was a 2.1. I went to Robert Morris University near Pittsburgh my freshman year, but I did a little bit too much partying there and I got kicked out. I felt helpless, like I had nothing going for me. But I did have one thing when I transferred to the University of Maryland that next year. I had this idea that I could be a sports writer. A teacher gave me this idea when I was 15 years old and suspended from school for misbehaving at my bus stop. I had no allegiances, no sense of school pride or loyalty to Blake High School or anyone who worked there. 3 days into my suspension, my journalism teacher, Kevin Keegan, came to visit me off campus. He said he'd had the punishment reduced with Carol Goodman after some negotiating. But I couldn't do anything like this again because I was embarrassing the newspaper. Most of you have been there, maybe not suspended, but somebody at our high school saw potential in you, believed in you, and invited you to be a part of something that was bigger than yourself. That feeling of belonging to a group and being so good at something that my success or failure mattered to somebody who wasn't a member of my family, I kept that with me. I kept it with me at parties, in classrooms, on vacation. I never let go of that idea. I'm not going to tell you what the next 4 years of your life have to be about. They can be about the job you want, where you want to live, anything. You're going to want to have fun, you're going to want to go on amazing vacations, and you're going to meet somebody you care about. And you're going to want to help them reach their goals, even if it comes at the slight expense of your own. What I'm telling you is that there's going to be a moment in the next 4 years where you hear a slight tap at the door. It's not going to be loud, but if you're always paying attention, you're going to hear it. The first time I heard it, I was a sophomore in college. I was told that internships were the key to a career in journalism. Grades mattered, but not as much as real experiences in a newsroom. So I found addresses for 40 internship coordinators at newspapers across the United States, and I mailed out my little packets of stories. I think I even had a Blake Beat story in there. I was accepted as a summer intern at just one newspaper, the Bristol Herald-Courier in Southwest Virginia. On day one, my mom drove me down in my old Acura, and I went to the newsroom, and they said, "Do you want to write a story?" And I said, "Heck yeah." So they handed me a notebook and a pen, and they said, "Go on out to the East Hill Cemetery. The Sons of the Confederacy are doing a mock funeral reenactment for Memorial Day." I said, "Oh." For those that don't know, the Sons of the Confederacy are a group of men who claim Confederate ancestry and gather to celebrate it and talk about Confederate things. It's not exactly allies for equality. So I drove over to the cemetery, walked up the hill, and there are 30 men dressed in Confederate gray uniforms with fake guns. I think they're fake guns. And they were going to pretend to bury a corpse. They had a hole dug and everything. So I had my little notebook and pen, and I walked up to the guy with the most regalia on his chest, and I said, "Hey, I'm Robert Klemko with the Bristol Herald-Courier, and I'm here to do a story on whatever this is." And he said, and I'll never forget this, "Well, just so you know, boy, it's about heritage, not hate." So I did my interviews, and I came back and I wrote the story. Back in the newsroom, I could tell there was some kind of joke about the whole thing, sending the only black intern, the only black person at the entire newspaper, to cover a Confederate rally. What I found out that summer was that they had hired too many interns and they were trying to get one to quit. There are plenty of ways I could have handled that situation. I could have quit. I was angry enough to do it. But I would have missed out on all the incredible experiences that summer, covering minor league baseball and local crime and playing rugby. I could have let my ego prevent all that. The choice I had to make was that knock on the door I'm talking about. I don't think I could have put it into words then, but I realized that my idea, my dream for what I could be, was bigger than that moment of anger. It was bigger than that newspaper and the people that worked there. But I needed that newspaper to get the next internship and then to get the next job on the way to Sports Illustrated. Your dream is just that big. It's bigger. The only ceiling in this world is the one that you create. Tigers don't concern themselves with the politics of sheep. They just eat. The only person who can guarantee that you won't find your passion and wake up every morning next to the love of your life and make a living doing that one specific thing that thrills you and challenges you and satisfies your moral compass is you. There isn't a blueprint to getting what you want in life. When I got my first job at USA Today in 2010 and I became a reporter there, acquaintances would talk about how lucky I was. I would always think back to that first year I wanted so badly to write for the PG County Gazette. I had written exactly 10 stories for the Maryland student newspaper, and I emailed the links to the sports editor there. No reply. I emailed him again. Nothing. I called the office. He wasn't available. So I found the address to the newsroom online, and I drove over there and I bluffed my way past the secretary, and I slapped my stories down in front of the editor, and I said, "I don't want any money. I just want to write for you for free." That afternoon, I was covering high school volleyball for free. Maybe you've heard this before. The harder you work, the luckier you get. I'm not saying that you have to know what you want to do in life at this very moment. What I'm asking you to do is jump in. Take that study abroad trip so you can hear what a real Russian accent sounds like, and know for a fact how awful British food is. If you never auditioned for the theater department at Blake, join a play at your college. If you never played a sport in high school, take up ultimate frisbee on campus. Don't hesitate to declare a major, if only to find out that you hate it and would rather do anything else. Whatever you're doing, bust your butt. My grandma tells me, no matter your job, even if you're the street sweeper, you have to sweep that street better than anybody else. I'm going to ask you to do one thing that has nothing to do with school or your future job. Hold on to your friends. Support them when they're slugging through finals on Red Bull. And if you're going to celebrate the good times, be there when their hearts are broken for the first time and every time after that. And when it's 3 a.m. and they're too drunk to drive, hide their keys in a couch cushion or a flower pot. Anywhere will do. That 6 a.m. call from somebody's mom asking if you were with him last night is something that you will never forget. Avoid it at all costs. I have faith in you guys because you come from my family. You know what it is to walk from the gym down the driveway to Bengal Stadium with cleats on like a marching army. And you know the smell of drying paint and sawdust backstage in the auditorium. And you've walked down the hill to the baseball field past the memorial trees and seen the name of somebody you went to high school or middle school with. They didn't get to be here today, but you did, and you have to earn that. I'd ask you to look up at your parents in the audience, and your guardians, and your friends. Over half of you come from minority households. All of you come from women. Almost all of them were born in the 60s and 70s when this country was still wrestling with the aftermath of segregation and Jim Crow. And equal pay for women was hardly a whisper. When my mother was a first-year grad student at the University of California at Davis, her assigned locker mate refused to share a space with the only black girl in the class. That struggle, that breathless pounding against a glass ceiling, continues today in many forms. You went to Blake High School, a place named after a black jazz musician, the only high school named after an African American in our county. This year, you stood up when you believed you were facing racial injustice. You said you couldn't breathe. You went to a destination school for the arts. If you didn't know any gay classmates in 8th grade, you knew several by fall 2012. And many of you will go to colleges where homosexuals aren't open and aren't free to express themselves the way they are on Norwood Road. Whatever you believe, stand up for it. Fight for those who can't or won't fight for themselves. There's no limit or ceiling holding back what you can contribute to this world because you went to Blake High School. But you have to be careful. You have to pick your battles. The trouble with a fighter's mentality, I've found, is that it can be difficult to turn off. Last October, I got into an argument with a cab driver, and he got out of his cab to confront me in the driveway of my home. And we fought in front of my building for 4 minutes. Then he went to retrieve a weapon from his car, and I beat him to the car in the worst decision of my life. I drove it around the block, I parked it, and I walked home. I thought my career was over. I flew to New York, ready to turn in my laptop. I had nothing but an apology, and they suspended me for a month. When I came back to work, I went into overdrive. I found that intern mentality again I had back at USA Today. I called Mr. Barry and explained what happened, and I offered to back out of this opportunity if he felt I wasn't fit to speak to y'all. But Mr. Barry asked me if I'd learned anything, and I said yes. And he said, well, tell the kids. So here I am, and what I can tell you is that you're going to make mistakes. And the worst thing you can do is lie or try to minimize or hide from them. Own up to what you've done, to the people who matter the most, and go back to work. Never give up on your dream. I leave you with one story on a happier note. In 2012, I was assigned to cover my first Super Bowl, joining the USA Today staff in Indianapolis. On Thursday of Super Bowl week, our top NFL writer at the time, Jarrett Bell, asked me to spend the day and evening with him so he could introduce me to NFL types around the hotels. We were walking through the lobby of the Marriott when we were spotted by Hall of Fame wide receiver Michael Irvin, who was mid-conversation with two other people. "Jarrett, get over here." Jarrett had come up in journalism by covering the 1990s Dallas Cowboys, football's greatest modern dynasty. Michael looked at me and asked Jarrett, "Who's this?" Jarrett said to Michael, "You were a first-round draft pick of the Cowboys in '88. This is our first-round draft pick, Robert Klemko." It was the intro to end all intros, and it opened doors I still walk through to this day. At the end of the night, after hanging out with a legend for 4 hours, Irvin wrapped his arm around my shoulders and said, "What Jarrett just did for you, you have to promise me that you're going to do for somebody else one day. You have to pass that on." In the next 4 years, you could meet one of the most important people of your life. He or she is going to recognize a winner, someone they'd be proud to attach their name to. And they're going to put you up on their shoulders, and you're going to see things the way they never could, and see a place for yourself in this world that you couldn't even have imagined sitting here today. Your challenge is to be worthy of their guidance, and to be worthy of that second chance after you stumble. I will spend the rest of my life working to justify the opportunities and second chances I've been given, and making sure I pass on that favor to the next generation. Before I leave, I'd like to thank my family, Alex, Lisa, Leland, Jordan, Cross, and Bema, who shaped me in every way imaginable. Kevin Keegan, my high school journalism teacher, without whom I would not be standing here. I want to thank former Blake principal Carol Goodman and Mr. Barry, who started a dynasty at Blake High School. I want to thank Joe Caulfield, current steward of the Blake Beat, and the 2015 winners of our Kevin Keegan Journalism Scholarship, Courtney Hutchinson and Logan Dreher. Before you leave here today, take this opportunity to thank that person at Blake who mentored you and prepared you for this moment, and be sure to visit them often because they never get tired of seeing the fruits of their labor. I am honored more than you can ever know to stand with you today as fellow graduates of Blake High School. Go Bengals.